I was very transparent in asking if we could look at development of the Kline lot. I did have permission to do what I've done. City Council can always decide to go to an RFP. We haven't been given that direction yet.
That was Ann Arbor City Administrator Milton Dohoney on January 29, 2024, explaining why the city had spent 6 months negotiating terms with a single developer for a conference center on city-owned property. This property was previously set aside for the development of affordable housing. This is Few Things Considered from A2 Council Update. This week, residents gathered in person at City Hall and on Zoom to hear a presentation from developers for a Sports Illustrated Resort and Conference Center to be located at William and Ashley. Ahead of the meeting, local and nationally known sports journalist John U. Bacon expressed his opposition to the idea, describing it as big, ugly, cliché, and potentially ruinous to downtown. This city-owned parcel is located on South Ashley, between William and Liberty, behind the Art Center and just west of Main Street. In April 2019, a previous council unanimously approved a policy that this city-owned property would be assessed as a potential development site for affordable housing. The city's Housing Commission assessed it as high priority. Public engagement revealed significant community support for affordable housing as the top priority. In April 2023, City Administrator Dohoney presented his proposal for a city budget. He emphasized the need for revenue and had ideas for both City Hall and the property of the Kline's lot.
I would like to pursue the building of a market rate development on the promenade that you're looking at. A market rate development would generate revenue back to the city. I also want to pursue taking what we call the Kline lot, which was assessed at $19 million some years ago, and I would like to see us pursue putting a market rate development on it.
On May 9th, members of the Council Administration Committee, including Mayor Taylor and Council members Briggs, Iyer, Radina, and Watson, discussed the idea for high-end luxury housing on city-owned property to generate as much cash as possible. They heard this explanation from City Administrator Milton Dohoney.
You want to charge as much as possible. You want this thing to generate as much cash as possible. That's why I did not say let's use it for affordable housing. Assuming that we get past the budget on Monday and council doesn't say don't do it, starting May 16, I'm off.
Councilmember Briggs inquired about any further public process that might be required to move forward.
Because I wasn't sure if you were looking for a resolution from council to kind of get started, or if I noticed there wasn't, anything in the budget. At least I don't think there's anything in the budget around sort of funding for that structural analysis.
Resolution of support is helpful. It's not mandatory, but if you approve of looking into it and you want to be on the record saying that, that's fantastic.
Between May and September of 2023, no one chose to go on the record in support of the idea. Plans for City Hall or the Kline lot were not put on a city council agenda for public discussion in an open meeting. In September 2023, both the City Communications Office and City Administrator Milton Dohoney excitedly announced that an entity called Sports Illustrated Resorts had expressed interest in developing a city-owned property previously designated and assessed as an appropriate site for affordable housing. MLive reported on a Sports Illustrated Resort proposal to build a hotel, conference center, and timeshare condos. Speaking to MLive, Councilmember Briggs admitted that City Council had been considering the proposal in private. At their meeting on October 16, 2023, City Council considered a resolution asking the City Administrator to provide a written recommendation for best use of the Kline lot and process for moving forward with its sale. The resolution was sponsored by Council members Briggs, Iyer, and Radina, all of whom are members of the Council Administration Committee. All three are up for re-election this year. A majority of council rejected the resolution requesting public process for disposition of the city-owned property called the Kline's Lot.
In part, I believe because the resolution would disrupt current conversations, and because I look forward to seeing if they can indeed come to fruition, to put forward a proposal that would be suitable for complete discussion. I will tonight be voting no.
A majority of council supported Mayor Taylor's opinion that no further public process was required.
I am excited enough about this proposal that I'd like us to move forward. I'd like us not to stop.
Even though I am myself not a connoisseur of local sports, I fully appreciate the full market value that it brings to our city. And I love the discussion as to whether we're a city of nerds or we're a city of jocks.
I will be voting no tonight on implementing this process.
The resolution's sponsors, council members Briggs, Iyer, and Radina, had failed to persuade a single colleague to support it. Since the seating of a new council in November 2022, over 97% of council votes are unanimous. In public meetings, council members now discuss agenda items by taking turns reading pre-written statements expressing their unanimous agreement. The split vote in October was highly unusual, but it was also a clear message to both Milton Dohoney and the developers of Sports Illustrated Resorts, as explained by Councilmember Briggs.
If council doesn't support this resolution, we will continue to work to negotiate a deal with this developer.
Behind the scenes, the deal moved forward. After a majority of council defeated the Briggs-Iyer-Radina resolution, the city shared that news with the development team for Sports Illustrated Resorts. Discussion of the deal had, at this point, been happening for months. In July 2023, City Administrator Milton Dohoney began exchanging messages with a former employee, Otis Jones, about a potential partnership with the city, county, and University of Michigan for a collegiate Sports Illustrated on-campus resort program in Ann Arbor. Between July and September, dozens of emails were exchanged and multiple meetings organized by Milton Dohoney and his former employee, Otis Jones. Emails and meetings included various city leaders, lawyers, city staff, and representatives from Sports Illustrated Resorts development team. In order to move this project forward, the city hired outside legal counsel from Miller Canfield. A recent FOIA reveals that the city spent over $30,000 on legal advice and support for this project through December 20th, 2023. It's unknown how much additional money was spent in the month since. This background is interesting context for council statements made in October 2023 in opposition to the resolution calling for more public process.
For my part, I'm extremely comfortable with staff's discussion with SI to explore whether SI is able to put together a proposal. Anyone with an alternative proposal may engage on exactly the same basis as SI is presently engaging now.
I want to reiterate Mayor Taylor's point that another developer, any other developer could come to the city with a proposal, with an idea, with a notion of what that site could look like.
In November 2023, the developers of Sports Illustrated Resorts continued to negotiate with the city. In emails to the Sports Illustrated Resorts team, City Administrator Dohoney explained his strategy for approaching City Council. On November 16, 2023, Milton Dohoney sent explanation of the Sports Illustrated Resorts proposal to the whole of City Council, using familiar buzzwords and talking points. At the end of the council meeting on November 18th, there would be a closed session for discussion of more details. The day after receiving Dohoney's email, Councilmember Erica Briggs emailed a lengthy newsletter to constituents. She mentioned nothing about Sports Illustrated Resorts. Instead, she boasted about her own commitment to transparency and warned her readers not to trust other sources of information. The public remained in the dark. A few weeks later, local resident Michael Watts launched a website to share the public documents and communication that had been released via FOIA. In December 2023, the Ann Arbor Observer reported on the project, including how it began. On January 29, 2024, residents gathered in person and online to hear presentations from Milton Dohoney, Destination Ann Arbor, city staff, and representatives from Sports Illustrated Resorts. The public heard two more explanations of how this proposal first took shape.
I woke up one day and called Otis. I said, why are we not doing this here? This is our own backyard. I actually drove around Ann Arbor looking for a conference center because I thought we had one. And then after driving around, I said, we don't have a conference center.
Prior to ever hearing anything from Sports Illustrated, I had already been in discussions with Destination Ann Arbor about needs in the community. I learned about the need for a conference center from them. When I first engaged with Sports Illustrated, they were only talking about a hotel initially, and I asked them about the possibility of the conference center going inside of the hotel.
Comments and questions from residents were overwhelmingly negative. Local attorneys and other residents raised concerns about a financing scheme that would involve city-issued tax-exempt bonds, brownfield tax abatements, and other public subsidy of a Sports Illustrated Resorts development.
A resident of downtown. I'm a member of the Downtown Area Citizens Advisory Council. I just have one question. It's about the ownership of the property. I don't understand that. Can somebody tell me if we're giving up a free simple? I understand there's going to be a lease. How long will that be? Have those decisions been made? What equity interest will our city retain in this property once it is, when its life is over or going into the future?
And I am a commercial real estate lawyer who's done a lot of ground lease deals with both private and public entities, and so I'm very familiar with the public-private partnerships. I'm told this is a ground lease. Is this a subordinated ground lease, or is this a non-subordinated ground lease? What's the rent that's going to be paid? Is that based on the land value, or is that part of the contribution that you're actually looking for from the city, where you're getting a beneficial rent rate on the land? And is the city risking the loss of the land, or is it going to be subordinated to the lender? What's the credit situation? I also understand that there are public bonds being issued. And so, again, the public has a huge role in the financing of this project. And again, all I would ask for is transparency over it.
I have, in the course of my career, represented a number of developers and automotive suppliers that have sought public financing and various forms of it. And I have learned that the devil is in the detail. So I have a question. There was a November last year draft term sheet that became public sometime in early January. And I wrote a letter to the city council over my concerns that were raised in that term sheet. And so my question is, has there been a change in that term sheet? And what was the city's participation in developing that term sheet?
Specific concerns prompted vague answers.
The net result of all of this, my teams that I'm putting in place will be responsible for delivering upon these promises. And the net result of that, at a relatively conservative forecast, based upon the model you've seen and the occupancy rates that are indicated by research and study for us.
I'll speak just to the financing structure at a high level. I'm not a finance expert, but I slept at a Holiday Inn last night. But have been involved in a lot of P3 structures that are quite similar to this. The financing structure that's been conceived, and again, nothing has been agreed to. So that's what's been conceived so far. That's what the modeling has been based on. As we say, no decisions have been made. But that concept is not new. It's not fresh. It's not even considered innovative anymore, even though the people that do it are very innovative.
You also mentioned that the site is a brownfield, which the county has no record of. Apparently neither does the city. Could you please tell us how bad the pollution is and from what building it came from? And to add on to that, if you're going to be developing it as a brownfield or transformational brownfield project, will you be recapturing the income tax from anybody who works and lives on site?
Because of the previous older buildings that were there, that statistically, that they would have some kind of brownfield remediation from leads, from all kinds of stuff. It's just a fact when there was a big building there for years, decades, and when you have those kind of things, you statistically have, brownfield issues.
Others commented on the need for housing and expressed concerns about the potential failure of the project.
We need to stop kicking the affordable housing can down the road and make opportunities for people who work here to live here. This has been a priority for as long as I've lived in Ann Arbor, and so little is happening. We've got to address those needs rather than a synthetic conference center.
Nobody who works in this facility will be able to live in Ann Arbor, so great creating jobs, but we don't have a conference center crisis. We need a conference center. We have a housing crisis for people, and that's what the site is supposed to address. It needs to be high-density, affordable, maybe mixed-use, mixed market housing.
And I'm really disappointed that when this property that has been part of the conversation in the city for a long time, yes, before you were here, but it's been on the docket for affordable housing, for worker housing. And when somebody comes in off the street, more or less, with a good idea, that does have big revenue, multi-million dollars, it would be proper to say, okay, we are now considering this property. Let's look for a request for proposals to see what we can get on the housing front. This should be for affordable housing, and you're not asking for what is possible on affordable housing.
I had a law practice in downtown Ann Arbor for 45 years. I have similar concerns about what happens if this project fails. Are we going to be left with a big hulking behemoth of a vacant structure in downtown? Take a look at Dayton, Ohio, or some of the other places where they have struggling convention centers, and it's not an asset to a city's core.
This lot was destined to be affordable housing, like a 3 or 4 story dedicated housing, affordable housing plan. I was wondering if you could help me to understand the turnabout to having a branded convention center.
I personally am not familiar with the survey. Maybe that's something that happened before I got here.
I'm kind of appalled that you had no idea that affordable housing was the highest use that the city had flagged in the recent past for the Kline slot. But I guess you know it now.
Throughout questions and comments, City Administrator Milton Dohoney emphasized repeatedly that everything about this proposal and the process of negotiating it was consistent with directives from City Council.
I asked in April of last year for permission to look at developing 2 sites. This site that we're talking about and the space right next to City Hall. As I indicated, haven't taken them any kind of a structure. What you're suggesting might be something that council takes action on, but that has not occurred yet. I was very transparent with City Council and asking, I was very transparent in asking if we could look at development of the Kline lot. I did have permission to do what I've done. City Council can always decide to go to an RFP. We haven't been given that direction yet. The majority of council has given direction for us to continue the process. We still, as I indicated, haven't taken them any kind of a structure. What you're suggesting might be something that council takes action on, but that has not occurred yet.
One resident asked perhaps the biggest question of the evening.
But I don't think that's the wish of these citizens. Question for you, Mr. Dohoney. The vote on this, is it an 8-3 vote? Is it an 8 supermajority vote to approve a project like this to sell and lease city land?
Yes.
So in other words, 4 council people could kill the deal. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Hours after this public meeting, council members Briggs, Iyer, Radina, and Ackman eagerly announced their opposition to the project, which meant it could not move forward. On January 31st, 2024, after 6 months of private negotiations, 4 months of public outcry, hours of city staff time invested, and over $30,000 in legal fees paid by the city, local media outlets reported that Sports Illustrated Resorts had withdrawn their proposal for a hotel and conference center in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor City Council has still not had a public discussion about any plan to use this property for something other than affordable housing. Like and subscribe if you would like to be alerted to more content like this.